Hey guys, Kyle with Dirt Bike Channel here again. On today's video, we are going to be installing our suspension back on our bike. Recently, we sent this suspension off to Stillwell Performance down in Scottsdale, Arizona, and they revalved it for us. And so this video just kind of highlights some of the steps that you're taking when you're reinstalling your suspension. Specifically right here, obviously, as it shows, we are putting our rear shock back in the bike. And it's not difficult. It's only, a few bolts to be able to take this apart, and then to put it back together. So it's not like a major project. If that's something that you're a little bit apprehensive about, you can do this. I mean, this isn't difficult. You've got one bolt in the top that you'll need to kind of have torqued down, and I think this one torques to 60 Newton meters. I don't have the torque wrench out yet. I'm just kind of getting that thing snug. And then this bottom, the bottom nut or bolt goes through here, and this installs through your linkage. And so you'll just kind of make sure that this lines up here. So not too difficult, and you'll be doing this at 60 Newton meters too as soon as you get the torque wrench out. And then there's that bolt in the back where your actual linkage guard hooks on to the actual linkage. That one is torqued to 80 Newton meters. So definitely something that you need to have when you're working on your bike, especially on your suspension, is a torque wrench. So that's what we're doing right here. We've set our torque wrench, and you just want to make sure that you can get kind of a good clean reading, that nothing's binding, and that will be good. But honestly, there's only really 3 main bolts on your rear shock. You've got the one bolt on the top and 2 bolts down here on the bottom that hold this thing together. So when I was taking this thing apart, I honestly, just from the entire time, and I took obviously my tires off, and then the rear shock off, and the suspension off, and it took me 30 minutes total. This Fastway linkage guard probably deserves its own video, but I'm not going to do that. So I'm just putting the linkage guard on now. They come with different inserts that you can use, and these inserts will change your seat height and your overall bike length. I'm just going to put this back to the stock setting, which is having one dot pointed at the arrow on these little inserts. You could flip it around and go the other way if you wanted. I'm not going to. So I'm going to put this in. Make sure on the other side that I've got this lined up correctly. Right, like that. And then I'll put some thread locker on this. I'm not putting a ton on, I'm just putting enough. And the interesting thing is, this one is set to, according to the manual specs, this lower one down here, or this one, I shouldn't say it's lower, it's just this one is supposed to be at 80 Newton meters. Well, the other was 60, this was 60 Newton meters as well as the top. I hope I didn't say foot-pounds before, because it's Newton meters. There is a foot-pounds obviously correspondent to it, but we're going 80 Newton meters on this. So that's all there is to the rear shock. 3 bolts. Well, 4 if you count down here, but very easy to install and very easy to take out, as a matter of fact. So you probably can't see this, but per Alan Stillwell, I'm putting a little bit of anti-seize on my bolts here that are going up on my clamps on the front fork. So he just mentions on his video, on his pro tips or factory tuning tips video, that if you put a little bit of anti-seize on these bolts, that you can get a better torque spec on them. So we're going to pull all these out, put a little anti-seize, and run them back in. So it's time to slide our forks up into our triple clamps. When you take your forks apart, pay close attention to exactly how far up they are mounted in the triple clamp. If you mount your fork lower, in the triple clamp, you are effectively extending your wheelbase, which gives you greater stability at high speed, but makes it kind of want to go straight. If you mount the forks higher in the triple clamps, you have effectively reduced the overall wheelbase of your bike, and you've made it more nimble. You've made it so it wants to turn a little bit faster, a little bit better. So high-speed desert guides run the forks lower in the triple clamp. Woods guys that are doing a lot of turning and twisty stuff, they'll run the forks higher in the triple clamps. Okay, this is going to have to be redone once I get my tire on, but I'm just going to put that to 12. Let's run these to 12. These top ones are actually supposed to be at 17 Newton meters. So there's 12. I'm just going to leave them like that. This one I'll redo at 17 when I get it all put together, but that will just keep this in place so it's not going to go anywhere. Okay, now we're just putting our brake caliper back on the fork in preparation of getting this completed all the way. Time to repeat the process on the other side. And you'll notice that Stillwell puts a baseline sticker there on the top of that fork to show you what your baseline setting should be for your fork and for your shock, which is kind of a nice touch for you to refer back to in the future. We should probably do another video about installing your front tire, how to make sure that that isn't bound up in the forks. We'll do that on another video. Basically, you're just going to put your axle through, and you'll use the pinch bolts on one side, on that left side, on my left hand, to pinch it down, and then you'll, kind of torque your axle nut over here on the right side, torque that down to spec while you've got those bolts pinched, and then you're essentially going to loosen your bolts, those pinch bolts, and put some pressure on the fork, roll it down the driveway or whatever, and then hit your front brake, and that kind of just lets everything align itself before it's all tight. And then you can go through and tighten stuff up. So there's definitely a right and a wrong way to make sure that your front fork isn't bound up and your front tire isn't all bound up. Won't go into a whole lot of detail here. Just putting our fork guards back on the bike. So there's a number of little things that you're going to have to pull in order to do the suspension. Obviously, I've got the tank off here, and that's not necessary. I pulled off a few different things on the bike just as I was cleaning it that weren't necessarily part of the process, but taking the wheels off is definitely part of the process. So you saw me there checking my brakes to make sure that they're fine once you get it back in the brake caliper. And I'll have to do the same thing here on the rear. So you just kind of take your time, make sure that you don't pinch yourself, and get your chain on. It's probably a good time also to check the tension on your chain. So check your manual and look for that spec. But essentially that's it, guys. We got this thing back together, and it's time to go out and put some time on it and ride it and see what we think about the suspension.